The drummers were here first. I knew it was all going to go wrong then.
40s and 50s big band meets techno-lunatic.
With Toolshed, one of the exciting things was the ways in which different kinds of musicians were being brought together. There were musicians from the Royal Northern College of Music alongside people much more from a dance music background. And I think that's a great skill, obviously, that Graham has, is to rethink the boundaries between different forms of music and turn them into something very unique.
Quite a thing behind Toolshed, really, the kind of fusion of man and machine. You know, Graham does a lot of programmed sort of music and a lot of programmed backings to it, but you know, then there's quite a lot of room for sort of the human element on top, the kind of improvisation and the mistakes that humans can make and stuff, but that kind of sort of slapped against the rigidness of kind of samples.
Without the aid of computers, I would never have written this music. You know, there's a big world difference between a lot of the musicians here who are very traditionally trained and the way I write music. And one of the interesting things is that how those two things interface. If the music's coming from me, it's coming from a technological background that's based on dance music, but it's also coming from a lot of things previous to that, which are sort of a lot of, you know, improvised stuff from periods before dance music. A lot of these people are like 20 years old. That's when I was starting to make music. You know, they were in nappies, and there's a whole thread of stuff that goes through that 20 years that makes up the music that comes out the computer. You know, it's not just about being modern in inverted commas. You know, there's a lot more goes into it than just being techno.
Computer music doesn't work on instruments, don't, like 100%. So if, like with samples, you can get 4 or 5 sounds coming at once and get like intervals in the music which don't really exist. We've had to try and adapt our own techniques to try and match what the computer wants, and as well as being realistic to the saxophone.
I think that Graham has used the MIDI sequencing software and to construct the pieces, and then he's given those same loops to the musicians to work with. So it's pretty much what the machine would have done, but the musicians doing it instead. It's nice to have people around. Sequences can't go down to the pub, can they, you know?
Graham's guitar. I find a lot of the traditional musicians sort of are very up for the modern ways of doing things. You're getting different harmonies and things that you would never normally get because you're working with samples and you're getting a lot of sort of like moving parallel chords and things like that, and they're quite up for sort of like, you know, they find it all quite fresh, I think. mean, there is a temptation to sort of iron out all the risks in it with technology. I mean, it is so much easier to do a technological gig with your equipment where you know exactly what's going to happen. You know, and a lot of people go around doing that. One of the things that I've tried to sort of build back into Toolshed is that element of it being slightly sort of rickety and like, because you're only going to get the very special moments if you've got that element in it. But there always is a risk that it's going to fall on its face, you know. But that knife edge is very important to the performance, you know.
Trying to find the line between using the kind of sequence stuff and, you know, keeping it fairly structured, but also giving it room to kind of go off wherever it wants to go off.
The heart of our band comes from the drummers. I do get a lot of pressure off some of the other musicians to sort of cut back on the drums and just have one drummer, because I think it gets cluttered. But for me, getting the drummers is the real batteries behind the band, you know. I really get off on that, because it's just like having, like, you know, super Duracells in the middle of the band, you know. And for me at the moment, you know, they've been smiling a lot and putting a lot of energy across, and, you know, if you've got that at the centre of it, you're winning.
Big, bumpy, rough texture.
If you're ever in doubt, yeah, watch the drums.
Well, I mean, with us, he tells us what he kind of ideally wants us to play, and then we interpret that, don't we? Kind of he'll give us a part, and we'll play it, and he'll go yes or no. And if he's happy, then he'll let us kind of give us a bit of leeway, and then he'll direct in and out, stop, start, or quieter, louder, usual kind of things. You know, he might be hearing something on the gig. He might change his mind suddenly, but want it quieter, you know, at a moment. And it's just being aware, just being having your ears open, having your eyes open, and watching and listening all the time.
We were panicking about things that we weren't getting right. You know, it was like, what are we supposed to do here? Why isn't this right? Is that note supposed to be like that because it looked funny? And they just be, oh yeah, you know, whatever. And within long enough of them doing that, we sort of got the hang of it anyway. Relaxed, we weren't so bothered about it, so it came right.
I've always been on a bit of a battle against blandness in music. I think it's all going to this bland thing at the moment. You know, the safe is in. There isn't such a thing as like an underground thing anymore. It doesn't work that way of like the counterculture versus the overculture. You know, all that kind of thing has got blurred now. And I think it's important to put a balance back into what you're able to go out and see, something with a risk. You know, that's the audience we've developed at Toolshed the night. Is that people don't know what's going to happen, and sometimes it does fall on its face, and people are general warmness towards it that you don't get towards just putting on the usual entertainment of like